take off, take flight with you. For we never fly, but we're flying.
Hello and welcome to episode 170 of Take Flight podcast. This is an episode of myself, Daniel, which is a Take Flight takeaway. As you've probably seen from the title, have I just wasted £1,000 on personal development? Well, who knows? So it's no secret that for the past few years, I've wanted to do more reading, which I've done sporadically. But if I'm being honest, being consistent is something I've been a spectacular failure at. Where I work from home, it's difficult at times to read after a long day at work, sometimes finishing at 7 or 8 in the evening, depending on my family routine or the routine I have with my family, putting my son to bed, spending time with my wife, etc. And also when I travel, I don't do so much traveling on the train anymore. So that's one thing or a commute that I can't really spend time reading. And when I used to, I'd often fall asleep, not realizing how tired I am. And I do a fair bit of traveling. And when I do travel, I take a book with me in my hand luggage. But do I read it on the plane? Most likely not. I usually spend my time listening to classical music or scores and just staring at a blank screen because I'm not one to really watch or use the in-flight entertainment. Or I try and get some sleep and get some rest. In actual fact, I went to a spa last week as for a spa day, and I took a book with me. But the book did travel around with me, but I didn't open it once to read. And sometimes I think, is there something wrong with me? Do I not have enough? Can I not pay attention long enough? Or I just don't enjoy reading? And sometimes I don't enjoy reading. It takes something really gripping to get me hooked to want to read, or just a lot of downtime where I haven't got a lot to do, or I don't have many things to do around the house that I can devote to reading. I've often thought, do I take Olu's stance and listen to audiobooks? And if I'm probably honest with myself, I'm not sure they will be that much better for me. I think I would most likely zone out or get distracted and not then give it the attention it deserves, or having to keep going back to re-listen and re-listen and re-listen. So that's just kind of laying the foundations of my desire to want to read. But maybe they're excuses, maybe they're valid, maybe they're not. But those are reasons why I probably don't read as much as I would like to. Which I think I know I have to be conscious to carve out the time to devote some time to read. And I've been better at doing so in recent months of in the evening, just sitting down, having some quiet time and just reading for maybe a number of pages or a specific amount of time. Maybe that if I, reduce that to bite-sized chunks, it's more achievable in the long term rather than thinking, oh, I need to finish this book or I need to read this book. But taking a step back, so late last year, I invested in more personal development for myself. And this consisted of purchasing some books in specific areas such as clear communication, efficient execution, acting like an owner, being the top talent, repeatable, repeatable innovation, being customer focused, and much more. These have helped me, of course, in my personal areas as also in my professional areas. So I invested heavily in these areas. I also bought some memberships online. So Medium, I bought a membership there. I renewed my annual Financial Times subscription. So in total, I spent over £1,000 in personal development, of which £500 was solely allocated, or not, wasn't solely allocated to books, but ended up being book purchases. And have the books moved since they arrived? Well, actually, yes, they have. The reason I say they have is because they came in several boxes and I moved them into just one box. Um, but that's not really why they haven't moved. I want to rearrange my bookshelf and the arrangement, and I have to think about the balance loading as their shelves. So I need to think about how I want to arrange them. So that's probably the real reason why I haven't done it or moved them out their box. But I did actually move all of them one by one to make sure I had all 30 plus books that I'd ordered. But that's just I haven't got around to rearranging the shelf. However, that said, I do want to start reading the books this year. Um, so let's see if I start reading more. Let's see if I start reading again. And I'm not going to say I'm going to aim to read one book a month. I think I will set these goals in stages. Let's be realistic. If I haven't read a book in the whole of the last year, why now try and do something that's extreme and shock to the system? Of course, the goal and the aim should be a stretch goal, but let's also make them smart, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time based. So, what I will try and do is aim for a minimum of 6 books this year, which I can say has got to a somewhat okay start. I've almost finished a book that I started last year. I keep on saying last year. Yeah, it's a new year. It's not a new me. But yeah, I've almost got to the end of that book, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And I want to read more of these books. So let's see how this goes. Let's see how this year goes. I really hope it wasn't £1,000 wasted, because these are books I would like to read. I think these are books where implemented knowledge is power. I often say knowledge isn't power, implemented knowledge is power. And let's see where this goes. I'm making this a public take flight takeaway episode because I want to be held accountable. I want at any stage you need to say, "Oh, Daniel, how many books have you read? Are you on track for 6 this year? What have you learned from the books?" Because one thing I don't like doing is just reading a book for the sake of it. I really want to read the book and actually personalize it, annotate it, make notes, have a sheet or a notes on my phone where I actually take notes of what I'm consuming, things where I can action them in my life, things I want to follow up, whether it's be a bit of research or take action on those things. So I like to be intentional when I'm reading, not just to consume and forget about it and not apply anything that I've read to my life. So yes, it's interesting. Let's see how it goes. And for those who are watching, I can't even lift the box up because the box is too heavy. But I will share on the social media some of the books that I've purchased, some that may be familiar with you. I'm happy to hear any recommendations of books that you think I should add to my library. And yeah, that'll be interesting. And also, if there are any books that I've purchased that you would recommend should be at the top of my list, I would certainly welcome that feedback. So yes, I spent £1,000 on personal development, and I know someone who was actually a guest on our podcast. Alfred probably say £1,000 is nothing. You know, Alfred is one who's very much a champion of spending tens of thousands on personal development, and you can see with his results, it's definitely had a positive, great 10x return. And you know, he's someone that inspires me to continuously to invest in self-development and to be the best version of yourself that you can be and to impact others. So thank you for joining me on episode 170 of Take Flight Podcast, which was a takeaway of myself, Daniel. Welcome any feedback you may have. Find us on Instagram at Take Flight Podcast or find us on YouTube at Take Flight Podcast. We're on all streaming outlets, Apple Music, Stitcher, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Look forward to seeing and speaking with you next week for a Take Flight episode as a full. Until then, stay safe and God bless.
Take off, take flight with you. Yeah, for we never fly, but